Nuzlocke and Pokemon have come a long way. What started originally as one guy's playthrough is now a huge part of Pokemon culture. Yet throughout all these years, Nuzlockers get better and better at it, so Pokemon games had to naturally start getting harder, and people used ROM hacks to fill that void. But what happens if you make the challenge itself harder instead of the game? Well, then came the Hardcore Nuzlocke, with an extra couple rules that really tested the player's capability for strategy. I now ask, what if we do that again? Nuzlocke variants were everywhere back in the day. Soul Links, Wonder Locks, Sleep Locks, Rival Locks, Cage Locks, I could possibly name you more. How about I show you a Nuzlocke variant that hasn't been part of the mainstream for a bit now? Created all the way back in 2012 December, I present to you a playthrough of a hardcore Soul Silver WEDLOCKE. Not many people might know what a WEDLOCKE is, and that's okay. It was actually a huge part of my childhood. The WEDLOCKE was a Nuzlocke variant created by the YouTuber Maryland. You could see it as a solo playthrough cousin of the Soul Link. Of course, I'm going to be adding a modern spin to it, adding the Hardcore Nuzlocke rule set. Alongside that, I'll be playing on Pokemon Soul Silver, to honor Maryland's original playthrough since he first did his run on it on Heart Gold. I will explain you the new rules, but let's wait a bit, let's get a few Pokemon on my team so it's easier to explain. As far as the other Nuzlocke rules go, here they are also in the description. Let this amazing playthrough and roller coaster begin. I spawn into a new world of love, where Professor Elm kindly gives us our first Pokemon of the challenge. Now, since I'm trying to win, I picked Chikorita. I know this Pokemon is god-awful on this game, but I just wanted to try it. Why not just give myself an extra challenge? After hiking through the forest, we reach Mr. Pokemon's house and steal his Togepi egg alongside the Pokedex from Professor Oak. On the way back, we battle Silver, who falls to our little green dinosaur. Following that, we give Elm our egg, Lyra teaches us catching, and we begin our actual WEDLOCKE. My first ever encounter was a Pidgey, who is now linked to our Chikorita. We pass by Route 46, the Pokemon we catch there is a Rattata called Remy. Here is a good place to explain the WEDLOCKE. Skip here if you already know how a WEDLOCKE works. You heard me correctly. The Pidgey and Chikorita are now linked or partnered. When two Pokemon partner, they now have to fight in pairs, meaning you can only switch to and from a pair Pokemon. Even though Remy is single right now, we can only either use Remy or use Chikorita and Pidgey. And until someone dies, I can't use the other. Then, when Remy eventually gets a partner, it will all make sense. You can see it as if a party of 6 Pokemon is just 3 small teams. Whenever someone joins the party, that's when pairs are made. This leads into the second rule. Pokemon can only leave the party if they die or are released. Me personally, I tried my best in this challenge not to release anyone because I felt like that would make it more interesting for me, but it's really up to you what to do. Furthermore, the last thing I'd like to mention is that I used a variation of this WEDLOCKE that ignores gender entirely. I did this because I wanted to focus more on the challenge part of this Nuzlocke variant instead of the thematic side of it. And onwards we go, where we find ourselves a Kakuna to link with Remy. Bumblebee joins the squadron. And we finish our encounters for the gym with a Bellsprout, who will be unpartnered for the time being. There are more encounters we could get before the first gym, but I have a plan that I want to cook up. We smoke the Sprout Tower, including the Elder on top of it, and get ready to rustle some of Faulkner's feathers. I'm weaker than I should be, and in general, with my team it was pretty hard to pick who to lead with. I chose to depend on Sand Attack strats, which I do not recommend at all, because after dusting off the Pidgey, I found out Pidgeotto has Keen Eye, which is literally the first time in history this ability actually worked. This miscalculation on my end leads to the embarrassingly early departure of not only our Pidgey, but also our starter. So much for trying Chikorita out on this game. Luckily, Beedrill showed us that clearly he was much more qualified for this job. This is going to be a running theme in this playthrough. Faulkner hands us our first badge. We then pick up Togepi, with the potential to use it but choose not to. Instead, despite 2 losses already, I will enact my slightly too costly Master plan. Since I picked up Rock Smash, I can now use my Ruins of Elf encounter to get a Geodude. I could have used this place for a Natu later, or even an Unknown, which would have been funny, but trust me, I got this, yeah? Bellsprout finally has a pair now. I travel to the Sprout Tower at night to get myself a guaranteed Ghastly for my 5th encounter. Wait, so why did you do all of this? Now this is what I'm talking about. Also, I can get a Dunsparce guaranteed from Rock Smash in Dark Cave. Did I really just risk my entire early game and indirectly kill my starting place so I can use a Dunsparce? Yeah, of course I did. This is one of my favorite Pokemon. I'll use it whenever I can. And this is now our team. And until someone dies, it is going to stay that way. Though, we still have more Pokemon to catch. The last pre-gym route left, we got an Ekans in. Now, caught Pokemon go to the PC as the party is full. This means that we get free reigns on whoever enters the party when the next Pokemon inevitably dies. Fun fact, when I was testing, I actually found a shiny here. So, sucks that I can't use it. We grab a fishing rod and backtrack back to Cherry Grove where the angler gifts us a Magikarp. Then in Violent City, a Poliwag. We finish that, head to Union Cave where we get Onix as our encounter. If it's not used early, it's gonna be worthless since it can't evolve. And outside of the cave, we get a nighttime Zubat. We see a man pressed by a disgruntled cosplayer and snitch on him to Uncle Kurt. And before clearing the rodents ourselves, we net 2 final encounters for this gym, this being a Oddish from Ilex Forest and a Slowpoke with a tail intact from Slowpoke Well. Team Snot Rocket and their Atomic Executive get swept by a single ugly ass dragon, as Kurt fell off a simple ladder and we had to do it ourselves. The Slowpokes are saved and the Azalea gym is ours to conquer next. The trainers are beaten and next on the agenda is defeating Scyther and company. Jokes aside, Scyther is really strong for this point in the game, but it seems Geodude doesn't care as 3 rock throws end Bugsy's horrific excuse for a Gen 2 gym leader team. Don't even get me started. Now there's a fight against Silver, and my plan for him was to have Bellsprout beat the Ghastly so that Geodude can sweep the rest. After paralyzing it, Bellsprout got cursed, but with 12 HP remaining ended up succeeding in its task. Next was Quilava, which fell to a few magnitudes, and despite all those smoke screens it left behind, the first rock throw landed and Silver was downed by the undeniable MVP of this here early game. After some bird keeping trouble, we find ourselves the headbutt guy and strengthen some of our move pools. Route trainers do not offer us any challenge like usual and we instead find a lonely Drowsy to catch for the road. I waste no time and head straight to fighting Whitney at the Goldenrod gym. Whitney's Clefairy stood no chance against Infernac, and then the Run Killer came out. And I'll be real, I had no good way of killing this without losing half my team, especially since Whitney has that Milk Drink and Super Potion combo. So, once Geodude couldn't get any more damage in, it bravely self-destructed, so its partner and its friends survived against this rampaging cow. We will miss you, Geodude. Whitney has a hissy fit and we advance in the story direction. Dunsparce clears all the trainers along the path so we can freely go shopping for new partners for my new Widow. I caught a Nidoran female, Hoot Hoot, and chose to make my Route 36 encounter the Pseudo Widow, since I've never used one. I even caught a Stantler in that next route, a Pokemon I also wanted to try someday. We land in Ecotike City, where we now have an option to backtrack for Eevee, but I kinda forgot. And for encounters before the gym, we finish off at the Coughing in the Tower and a Machop at Mount Mortar, where we got Strength and Shadow Claw too. I chose to have Sudowoodo as Weepinbell's new partner, as having a rock type is nice and it's also got a Geodude adjacent feel to it. The Twarking Grunt defeated lands us with Surf, and now we face Silver again, but he again has a stronger team this time. His Ghastly is instantly annoying with Confuser and Curse, but eventually dies. Then this Magnemite steps in, paralyzes both of my Pokemon, and then kills not only Weepinbell but also Sudowoodo with Sonic Booms. I didn't even get a full fight with the girl. Raticate comes in and picks up the leftovers, which showed me that he was a much better line. I can only afford so many more of these mistakes. We scare off the dogs, talk to Eugene, and fill our 2 vacant party slots before facing Morty's gym. Stantler comes in for the ghost gym and Gyarados too, but she needs no explanation. Actually, she herself sweeps through all of the Haunters and Ghastlies in the gym, until Morty himself. Where not much actually changes, since his Ghastly dies to 1 bite. Then, Gengar is whittled down by Stantler since he can't hurt her. The other 2 Haunters die to 1 bite each. With Morty down, we are now halfway through Johto and a quarter through all the game's badges. The next 2 routes grant us a Meowth and a Magnemite for our box. I then start climbing the lighthouse to get our little quest from Jasmine. We surf over to Cyanwood where we catch a Tentacruel along the way. I retrieve the medicine, catch a Krabby from Rock Smash, and walk into a Eugene fight unprepared. Which almost had me really salty, as even though Drowsy was a simple kill, the Electro had Thunder and almost took out Remy. Maybe I'm lucky for this, but Beedrill not only finished it and also managed to defeat the Haunter with Pursuits. We got away scot-free with this one. Gyarados swept Chuck's Disciples with Dragon Rage, and afterwards we stopped his bath short to challenge him to a fight. Going into the gym, I knew that Stantler baited Focus Punch and could stomp each turn to kill Primeape. Except what I did not consider was his double team antics. This meant my strat is no longer reliable from turn 1. I went for a last risky stomp and it luckily landed, followed by a switch into Gyarados on the heal turn. After a few turns, Rock Slide and Dragon Rage got us both down to 1 HP. And I couldn't see a way to keep Gyarados alive, unfortunately. So, Sawtooth died quite young and Primeape had to be finished off by Stantler, who going into the final 1v1 I was not confident in. But somehow, with Confuse Rays, Hypnoses, and Stomp Flinches, Stantler walked out of the fight unscathed, an absolute hero. With our 5th badge obtained, I get Fly and use it to return to the lighthouse and take on Jasmine at her own residence, 2 gym leaders back to back. Machoke hops out of our box to fill in for Gyarados and to assist us with the steel types of this gym fight. The point of him was to defeat all the Magnemites in one fell swoop. Underleveling has cost me this Pokemon's life. Because of it, Iron Tail takes a chunk out of Machoke and the Paralyzed procs to send Machoke right back to bed without dealing a lick of damage to the Steelix. Stantler tried her best to chip down Steelix as much as possible, yet those effects amounted to nothing. Dunsparce tried his best, and maybe could have lived if I used Haunter's Curse earlier. It really hurts to lose those 2. Then Remy also got him low, but after a Hyper Potion, he sadly succumbed to his injuries, and the only surviving member left was Beedrill, who was enough to finish the fight for us. We lived to see another day, but now I must rebuild my team from scratch, and this is not the last time this happens. Since our box isn't the sharpest right now, I decide to rebuild half of the party this moment and catch some Pokemon with them to fill the rest of the team. Bumblebee gets pulled towards Magneton as his partner alongside a new pair of Hypno and Tentacruel. And the box was indeed improved. As if it was some sick joke, I got myself a Steelix, which is from the same species as Onix, but species clause is optional, so I take it. I catch a Starmie and get into many trainer fights, where Hypno thankfully survives a close encounter with a Magmar and Electabuzz trainer. And outside the Safari Zone, I find a Tauros. And finally, after deliberating which is the best, I go for the first area of the Safari Zone and pocket a Magmar. With the preparations over, I choose to have the 2 most recent catches on my team as the final pair, which lets me continue onwards to Mahogany Town, where we catch a Venonat and Flaffy nearby alongside running away from the red Gyarados. Lance asked for our help, but then proceeded to show how corrupt he is by literally hyper beaming a human being, which for sure isn't legal. Then, down there, I catch a Voltorb and drown out this pretty repetitive Team Rocket segment that featured a not so difficult petrol battle, followed by a double battle that Lance and Tauros steamroll over. Ahead of us now is the battle against Price, where his trainers were a sweep, so I mistakenly assumed he was too. With this team, my lines weren't the best, but I chose to teach Irontail and lead with Tauros, who swiftly burnt a potion and beat up the seal. Irontail missed against Piloswine, so after tanking a blizzard I hoped Magmar would lay down the rest. And he did in fact take it down, but after Dugong didn't get hit by a single self-hit from Confuse Ray, I was in trouble. I had to switch because Thick Fat completely walled me off. To no avail, as Tauros got some damage in but perished with half of my TMs in his pocket. And his partner Magmar also sadly did, even though it was fairly close. Magneton then jumped in to avenge them to grant us our 7th badge of 16. Cotton the Persian and Clarence the Steelix are my new addition to the team. They do indeed share a fighting weakness, but other than that they are valuable. Professor Elm calls us up to tell us there's a rocket infestation in Goldenrod. We put on our cosplay and pushed against all the grunts there, including some of the boss fights, where Petrel was mostly dead to Hypno until I switched to Tentacruel as she finished it off. We then got the basement key, which leads us to another fight with our esteemed rival, where Clarence soloed Golbat, then with 36 HP survived a Flame Wheel to one-shot the Quilava. To get some extra damage on the Sneasel, I risked a Rock Tomb, which he barely survived just on 1 HP. Cotton comes out with a Fake Out and then proceeds to defeat Sneasel. And lastly, Magnemite goes down and Cotton gives us the win with no casualties, since Haunter also fell down to 1 hit. Phew. Back to business in the radio tower as we face 3 boss Team Rocket trainers. Proton is entirely swept by Magneton, and for the next trainer, Hypno proceeds to take out the Arbok, but then the Murkrow comes in, which I completely missed, and I was risking a kill on me with Pursuit. It then proceeded to crit me, and I think it did matter. Nemesis the Hypno beat the rest of Ariana's roster with Surf and Acid. Following that fight, I chose to be cocky. Instead of going back for a second team member like I should have, I looked at Executive Archer's team and saw 2 water weaknesses through Houndour and Houndoom. And I thought Tentacruel was going in alone without a partner, as she didn't need one. Houndour died, but Feint Attack did half, and Surf didn't even kill, so Nemesis died right after her partner. At least it was romantic. I wasn't really too happy with this outcome though. Did quite a lot of damage. Maybe I was dead to crit. Wait. Why do you live? Nemesis, you suck! I switched in Cotton and he alongside Clarence cleaned up the rest of the fight. How did he not win that fight? I genuinely think that was our best choice. Well, the best choice was to add a Pokemon to switch to, but, you know, can you blame me for not caring about that stuff? Yes, we can. With Team Rocket taken care of permanently, arrangements began to give ourselves a good position for the Dragon-type 8th Gym leader Claire. That included getting some missed encounters we never got with Headbutt and others, for some reason. In Eketique City it was an Execute, in Olivine Corsola, in Azalea Apom, and in the Lake of Rage a Pineco. And finally, in the new Route 44, a 10% Rem Raid encounter. Our new team consisted of team members Ashley and Pietre, the newly caught Fortress and Octillery. And in our stay in Ice Path, we got Negan the Mamoswine along the way, for which after doing some boulder puzzles, I stepped foot into Blackthorn City. Our arrival in Blackthorn meant 2 things. We have the move Rilana, and I ended up catching a Skarmory in Route 45. But after that, all I can do is swallow my fears and bite the bullet. Face off against the Dragon Gym, which is definitely up there for the most difficult gyms in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. What really reinforced this is after going into the first trainer, I literally lost not only Magneton but Beedrill to a Seadra and 2 Dratinis. We have now lost everyone from our first batch of 6 Pokemon. Rest in peace, Bumblebee. You can't forget all her partners either. Following the walk of shame back to the PC, I chose to pick up slightly less useful Pokemon who I was willing to let die for the cause. Claire was really scary, I required loyal sacrifices, and the pair amounted to becoming Electrode and Weezing. Electrode's job was to take out Gyarados, and Weezing's was to probably go boom. With that taken care of, back to the gym I headed, and trainer after trainer was giving me trouble. Yet none of them could get any of our Pokemon down. Then we stood in front of Claire with hope. It is what we fight with when all else is lost. Electrode took out that big ass fish with 2 charge beams. Then we had to say goodbye to him following a final charge beam on a Dragonair. Meanwhile, Weezing's job was just to take it out. I greeted and did not boom, and to my favor, she got a crit. But sadly, she couldn't boom, and their testicular partnership ended right here in their first ever fight. I sent out Fortress next, who came out just to die to 1 Hydro Pump, so that was awkward. Oops. And Pietre tried to do her best with Aurora Beams, whilst the Seahorse kept spamming Smokescreen. Taking it down to below half with no berry left, Pietre also passed. Cotton came out, dropped it to low with Fake Out and hacked at it with slashes following a Hyper Potion. He surprisingly lived the Hydro Pump, but without the crit, died with Seadra on low health, which died to a Dragon Breath from Clarence. Now at -1 accuracy, Clarence just needed to dodge enough Fire Blasts and hit enough Iron Tails. I will let it speak for itself. He missed! Don't miss! Clarence! This doesn't kill. Clarence. This is important. I think 80, 100. So that's 150 power and 120 power. That's a big difference. That's a big difference. I think Dig should kill from here. I think. You live this, Clarence. Any day, bro. Any day. Just don't get burned. Just don't get burned. You live this so easily. So easily. Don't get burned. Clarence! You can save us here, Clarence. Do it! Do it! Yes! Kill! Yes! Clarence! Let's go! Claire doesn't even let me celebrate that, and forces me to go into Dragon's Den and take a dragon test from Peter Jones. We end our errands in Blackthorn on a good note, luckily, following our capture of a Dratini. Technically, the next thing to do is to go for the Indigo League, though there are a few things to do. Most obviously, our team needs to be rebuilt. Clarence keeps that normal type spirit around him with Ambipom joining its fray. Mamoswine and Slowbro follow through as our partnership of bulk, whilst a Pokemon like Ampharos adds a lot of firepower that we need with a steel type complementary Skarmory. This is the team I was confident would bring us to the Pokemon League. Firstly, that is not what's in store. I received the Master Ball from Elm, which leads me to the Kimono Girls Gauntlet, an array of 5 evolution trainers all in a row, no break, no healing, which for a Wedlocke is extra devastating. But I'm confident Mamoswine and Slowbro have this one. Umbreon was dropped to 2 Earthquakes. Espeon dropped Negan low with Psychic, but also fell to just a single Earthquake. Flareon got handled by Slowbro, Jolteon to another EQ from Mamoswine, and finally Slowbro safely stalled us the win, and the Kimono Girls were not as scary as I thought. Flash forward a bit, Seal joins our PC in our lengthy maze-like escapade of the Whirl Islands, where we end up killing Lugia for fun. Afterwards, it means I can finally step into Kanto. The journey through the route grants us a Ponyta. We faced multiple trainers but flawlessly landed in Victory Road. Following our passage through it, I catch an Ursaring and face off against Silver for the final time. The fight began with Mamoswine. who hits EQ on Sneasel and Typhlosion attempts to avenge it. Slowbro handles it fine, but leaves with a burn. Mamoswine takes out the Haunter and Magneton light work, but is left on 3 HP from Curse, which means Poe is forced to beat Kadabra and attempts to stall it out. She ends up getting the kill, but is left on low HP too from the burn. Both of them face Golbat with no HP left. So Pooh has to fall, so that Ishard can put Silver into his coffin. Tight and unfortunate. But with Silver done, there's only 5 fights left for this part of the game. The last one is the hardest, so we have to go through them with losing 0 to minimal amounts of Pokemon. I planned for every fight, and this seems like the only Pokemon I can add to make my perfect roster. Welcome Crobat to the team. Let's not waste any more time, and let's begin the Indigo Plateau. Will is first. His Xatu faints to 2 Night Slashes from Tweet the Skarmory. Jinx comes out next, who gets a hit off but also dies from a single Steel Wing. After that, I switch into Ampharos to one-shot with Signal Beam, which also happens the same to his Slowbro since I have a Choice Specs equipped. After a few turns, his Ace Xatu goes down to Shaun the Sheep, and that's 1 member down. Koga was the simplest of them all. Ambibomb took care of Ariados and Steelix swaps into the literal easiest fight of his life. Fortress comes out, and he can't do anything better than dig, but the Fortress can't really hurt it anyway. Venomoth drops to 1 Iron Tail. Crobat uses a bunch of double teams, but it wasn't enough to stop Clarence's onslaught, because the last Pokemon was Muck, who literally can't do a lick of damage to Clarence, which means Koga is down just like that. In the planning stage, Bruno was the scariest of the Elite Four, apart from Lance, although I did manage to find a good line. New addition, Count Dracula. The Crobat's job in this fight is to spam Air Cutter with Choice Specs. Bruno's lead goes down to potion range, heals, then once low again withdraws from Hitmontop. Onyx comes in, but since it's an Onyx, it actually dies to 2 Air Cutters. Hitmonchan comes out. Danger is avoided by switching to Mamoswine, and I killed him with a Scarfed Earthquake. Same goes for Hitmonlee and Hitmontop. The Ace Machamp comes out last, but Crobat switches in, 2-shots it with Air Cutter, and Bruno is left behind us. Deathless going into Karen, and I intend to keep it that way. She leads with an Umbreon, who is similarly downed by 2 Earthquakes. Scarfed Swine outspeeds the Houndoom and takes him out. Vileplume gets a Stun Spore on the switch, but can only tickle Crobat, so he dies easily. Now comes out the Murkrow, who sadly whirlwinds me into the worst Pokemon possible. Despite it falling fairly quickly, the Gengar comes out next, who has Focus Blast. But my 2 Pokemon out right now are both really weak to it. It forces me to tickle it with George and give Clarence the best chance of killing it. So George, out you go. Clarence quick claw crunches, yet somehow a -1 defense Gengar survives that. Thankfully, Focus Blast misses. Karen uses a full restore and we are in the same position. But my goat never fails, and Quick Claw procs on the crunch one more time. We lost Ambipom, but it shouldn't hinder our chances at beating Lance and his flying types. Yet here we are. Despite many close calls, this tyrannical murderer is in front of us right now, and won't be able to Hyper Beam me, luckily. Lance the champion. Ambipom or not, we're gonna take heavy losses. Shaun discharges for the Oko. Skarmory tanks a few outrages on the switch to deal with a bit of chip so that it feints the Fire Blast, and Ampharos can finish off one of the 3 Dragonites. That one was his ace, but the next one comes in and kills Sean after a single discharge. This is enough for Negan to kill with Ice Shard though. Crobat is burned from the Fire Fang on the switch, and bravely sacrifices itself to do a bit more damage to Charizard, enough so Ancient Power from Mamoswine can kill it. More Ice Shard spamming results in the death of the last Dragonite, and as Aerodactyl comes out, Negan releases his final Ice Shard, which doesn't crit, so he perishes. This allows his boy Clarence to swoop in with one final Iron Tail to make us champion of the Pokemon League. Clarence being the sole survivor again. This could have gone haywire, but I'm glad it didn't. Oak and Mary lead us to the Hall of Fame, and we complete the first half, technically, of the Soul Silver Hardcore Wedlock. But that's only for the badges. The rest of this game flies really quickly. Let us begin our journey into Kanto, right after Clarence gets some friends back. The normal type ensemble completes once again with Ursaring. As you know, I still have a Dragonite in the box. I'm just frankly afraid to use it because these fights coming up are relatively easy compared to Red and Blue later on. Nidoran female and Execute partner together, with the final pair being a Lantern and Noctowl. I will say this team is way weaker than the Elite Four group. I just think that makes sense, since the caliber of fights now have dropped tremendously and they only pick up pace down the line. I focused mainly on having good type synergies with these 2 pairs included, and my box was kinda weak at this point. To get these guys up to level, I had to get the stones to evolve them first, and Loki got hypnotized by that smirking Execute sprite. Most of Kanto has really filler level 30 trainers everywhere, so this part of the video might be extremely fast paced. I boarded the SS Anne and landed in Vermilion City. I actually wanted to get all the badges in order, but gave up with that idea instantly. Remy's corpse had to be extracted from the PC for cut so I can access Surge's gym, which Clarence really didn't struggle in. With our first badge in Kanto obtained, I started catching some Pokemon along the way to our next gym badge. Shelder was fished up in Vermilion and Abra in the route above. Badge 10 will be taken from Sabrina. A hard fight, but I was dedicated to brute force through it, which was maybe a mistake. Clarence took plenty damage from the leading Espeon, even if he got the kill afterwards. Meaning though that he could not 1v1 the Alakazam, and following a trade of blows, the GOAT had to finally get some rest. Damn! Ursaring took hold of the avenging blow, but swiftly fell to Mr. Mime. That clown was then taken out by Lantern. We got the badge, and I reckon we should have probably come back here later with different Pokemon, though I think this is the second hardest gym here. You can't really replace him, though an attempt was made through Corsola and Rapidash? It looks really concerning, but I'm just staying loyal to my strategy of having decent type synergies and whittling out the mid in my PC box. Exploring the region, I catch a male Combi, Goldeen, Sunkern, Slackoff, and Spearow. Then I find myself trying to figure out how to unlock Cerulean Gym. Heading to the power plant, I catch Quagsire. They basically tell me that an immigrant Team Rocket Grunt member took it, so I get it back from him and then give it back to them. Being one step away from unlocking the gym, I naturally just wander off, I don't know why I did that, and caught a Murkrow and Heracross in the process. After sleeping in real life, I summon Misty and face her in her gym. Lantern leads us with a 2-shot on her Golduck. Noctowl eats the EQ on the switch, leading to Quagsire's demise. Lapras then stands no chance in a back and forth versus Lanty the Lantern. I was really running out of motivation for naming. Sadly, Starmie has both of them beat, and they have to fall to their knees, letting Exeggutor firm an Ice Beam and take it out in one shot. Badge 11 done now, 5 left, and just to let you know, our death box is now full and I had to make a new one. Oddish and Quagsire fill in our party as we tread along to Lavender Town. We get what we need and capture a Quillfish, Vulpix, and Cubone. I then continue my really strange pathing around the region and adventure towards Fuchsia, where we encounter a random double battle that lands us with the unfortunate death of Rapidash. Damn, that was the better of the two. Pharaoh jumps in joy as she joins up with Corsola, alongside us adding a Wurmple and Tangler to our already amazing list of backup Pokemon. Who knew that Janine was our next big-time target? Her Crobat felt the trembling aura of Ursula the Corsola, who used her dying breath after killing that bat to do as much damage as possible to the Weezing following up, who got defeated by our new rookie Pharaoh, and the same can be said for the rest of Janine's roster. Eyes are now set on Erica, and our golden child Corsola had to unfortunately be replaced by Ninetales. Grimer is caught and Erica's soldiers are downed, leading me to the big dog. Or not so big dog, since it only took 4 flamethrowers to burn her whole gym down. Back to Vermilion, I awaken Snorlax and catch him, alongside Dugtrio in Diglett Cave and Ladybug. Using an old Amber retrieved from Rock Smashing earlier, I revive an A1 threat in Aerodactyl, and face ready to challenge Brock and his rock hard. Genuinely the easiest fight so far. All of them are quad weak to Giga Drain from Vileplume. Only thing rock hard was how satisfying it was to kill them. Venturing further down, we get ourselves a Pikachu, Doduo, and Mr. Mime. And when we make it to Cinnabar Island, we see Blue aura farming next to an active volcano as we catch Golduck next to the second to last gym badge left, Blaine the fire type gym leader. And there's some kind of theme left with all of these gym leaders being extremely underwhelming. Fred the Quagsire alone eats up his whole team using earthquakes and waterfalls. Therefore there's only one man left, Blue. I want to say my team is not as strong as it could be right now, but since I was stubborn about the no releasing or deliberate death rule, I worked hard to find a plausible line for Blue. Let's see it through. Exeggutor faces off against my Rango. She was good up until this point, but she is god-awful in this fight because his whole team is male and I have rivalry. So using a Papaya Berry, I do what I can and take it out with poison jabs. Gyarados kinda walls me off. I hope for a poison but knowingly sack Nidoqueen. Using 2 strong Psychics, Exeggutor of my own kills off the dragon, and with the last Psychic, dies to the Arcanine who switches in. Fred beastily handles the dog and lets his partner take out the Rhydon. Giga Drain from Vileplume healing me to full and baiting in the Pidgeot next, who drops Vileplume and lets Fred try and handle it. With low health, he kills it, just to fall dead to the Machamp switching in. Both of my Pokemon left can handle this guy, but I chose to keep Ninetales alive, and let Phineas the Pharaoh be the sacrifice. A burn plus an overheat to kill, and Blue is down for the count! Let's go Ninetales. Now you get the privilege of being on my team, the one that beats up Red himself. Sitting at the PC and staring at Red's team for about an hour, I hatch up a plan that only requires 4 Pokemon to beat him. Slightly shakily, but I bring Ninetales linked with Poliwrath and Heracross linked with Aerodactyl. And this is all I needed according to my routing, but in case the plan goes awry, I had Snorlax and Dragonite be good backups. I was so confident that this was enough. So I climbed up to Mount Silver and faced off against the most iconic trainer in history. Ninetales takes out the Ace Pikachu in an overkill with Overheat, leading me to my first step of this master plan. Poliwrath switches in on the Hydro Cannon to... What? Who didn't tell me that the AI in this game doesn't see these moves in calculations? Hydro Cannon, Frenzy Plant, Blast Burn. My whole strategy was to pivot around these moves alone. Whatever. Now I have to freestyle. Great. I really hope this Poliwrath can kill this Blastoise being one turn down than intended. Oh great, but he then randomly switches out into Venusaur. Which is fine. It Sludge Bombs me on the switch and is downed to a singular Overheat. Blastoise then comes out again. Oh my god! Now, me being delusional, still thinking that it didn't bait Hydro Cannon because Ninetales survived the attack. But now it has to see the kill, right? So let's have Water Absorb active... Bro! Poliwrath dies, so does Ninetales and my whole plan with it. But I've got enough manpower to take him down still. With no Focus Blasts, Snorlax can take him out safely, and using Belly Drum and Rock Climb in the process, he does. Same goes for Red's own Snorlax. Down he goes. I try rest stalling Lapras, but oh well. I could have probably killed it with one attack. This means Dragonite has such an unfavorable matchup that despite being the strongest Pokemon in the save, he just dies. Oops. Beetle takes out Lapras with close combat as intended, then dies to give Aerodactyl the kill of Charizard on a silver shiny super clean plate. I missed the first Rock Slide, but hit the second, leaving Red to, jump off the cliff. And we completed Pokemon Soul Silver Hardcore Wedlocke. Woo! I love the Wedlocke. I'd love to do it again. Making this was so much fun. Shoutouts to the Wedlocke. Shoutouts to Maryland. Shoutouts to Peachal. Shoutouts to Clarence. Shoutouts to the creators of PokeLink. And shoutouts to you guys. Bye!